from the Salvation Army National Headquarters, this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley. We're coming to you from national headquarters of the Salvation Army in the United States of America in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, on a very cold January 2021 afternoon. With me, as always, my right and left hand, our War Cry editorial director, Mr. Jeff McDonald.
Dear Colonel Foley, so good to be with you. I do have a quick quote, if I may. I thought it'd be good to quote Abraham Lincoln, given our current political situation. He said, "I care not much for a man's religion whose dog and cat are not the better for it."
Now, dear listeners, could you write in and let us know, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down on that quote? We love these quotes, sir. Oh, that was good. That was good. And again, those quotes are like a complete surprise. We don't hear in the pre-ramble. So I never know where you're going to go with it.
We can always edit it out. We can always
Exactly. Exactly. We can always edit it out. And that's why we want to say hello and greetings to our producer, waving to us somewhere in her remote studio. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello there.
And we hope you're doing well today. And thank you for all that you're doing behind the scenes for not only for Fight for Good, but for our sister podcast, Battle Line, and everything that you're doing with all of our social media stuff. It's great stuff.
Thank you.
And also, you've got a brand new Christmas gift that a late arrival. Mm-hmm. So our faithful listeners, if you hear any kind of rustling and shuffling in the background, it's because of Elizabeth's Christmas gift, right?
Jean jacket with pearls down the arms.
So you can hear a little.
Yeah.
Anyways, so thank you, Elizabeth. Well, today we're very, very excited, as we always are, Jeff, aren't we? We're always excited about these podcasts.
Oh, man, it's a great opportunity to explore further what people are about and what their mission is.
We're always glad that, Elizabeth, you're able to arrange all kinds of new authors and different Salvation Army celebrities and all kinds of other people for our podcast. So thank you for arranging this today, because we have one of our newest contributors and a Salvation Army celebrity to boot with us today. But we're so glad that we're very, very glad that Major Ruth New is with us. You're calling in from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Major New, welcome to the Fight for Good podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you today sharing. So thank you for the opportunity.
For our listeners and the readers of the War Cry, Major New has started contributing on a regular basis for this next year, and hopefully maybe it might even turn into another year. We'll have to wait and see, but we have asked her to help us relaunch our whole section that we're doing for our Spanish-speaking readers. Through the pandemic, we found that the circulation of the War Cry has gotten out in so many different food boxes and all over the place. We've instituted a prayer of salvation in Spanish language in that section, and we wanted to kind of change it a little bit. And so this podcast, we're going to focus on what's happening with that particular part of the War Cry, but we also want you, our faithful listeners and our new listeners, to know a little bit about Major Ruth New. I had the privilege of meeting both Major Ruth and her husband Richard when I was on the faculty of a Bringle Institute many moons ago in Chicago over a couple of years, and I have followed their journey of ministry and have been very excited how they have a very, very unique story in themselves of God's miracle working in their lives. But we're just so glad that that Major, you're a part of us now, contributing afar while you're still conducting your ministry. Why don't you tell our listeners today a little bit about your family background, how you came to the Salvation Army, a little bit about your calling, who you are.
Thank you. Yes. Um, Let me just say thank you again for this opportunity to be here and reach out to so many people that love the Army and love the Word of God. And I'm just so honored to be able to extend um, a hand to the Spanish speakers in the country, Salvationists or not, to be able to read in your own language. That's a huge asset to worship and read in your language. It's from personal experience, I can attest to that. So this is a great opportunity, and also on a personal level, I've always wanted to write, and so I'm thankful to God and to you all for this chance. But I was born in Cuba some years ago. I'm not going to say how many. As a matter of fact, at the height of the communist regime in Cuba, I was born, and was born to a family that had been attending the Salvation Army for a few years. And as a matter of fact, my parents were in a training college. Um, I think when I was born. So yes, I have some family heritage. My grandmother came to the Salvation Army first, and she became a sergeant, a local sergeant at the Corps. And so I was born into a Salvation Army home and raised, and it was just a challenge and a privilege to be a Christian in a communist country. It taught me a lot and definitely made me the person that I am today, the kind of Christian I am today. My parents were Salvation Army officers for many, many years. They served in different positions until they became divisional commanders for an inordinate amount of years, for about 12 years, I think, in Cuba. And then they retired, and they live in Florida. Now, I have two brothers. They're also Salvation Army officers here in the Southern Territory. And so the whole family is kind of like a family business, if you will call it. So it was natural for me to come into the Salvation Army, and I always had a call. Like my two brothers, if I may speak for them, their call came in a little bit later, but mine, I was 10 years old when the Lord called me to service. I didn't know how that would look like because I was only 10, but I set my heart aside for that ministry, and I didn't concentrate on anything else but officership until I was able to attend a training college in Jamaica at the time. And so that has been kind of my journey in the Salvation Army. Later on, when I immigrated here to the United States, I was able to get back into officership, and it's been in total about 22, 23 years. I think this summer will be 23 years of officership in total. So I'm just so blessed to be able to be part of this great organization that God raised, and it will continue to work in God's will in God's will for many years. So that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's great, Major. That sounds like a very interesting background. And your current appointment, and how long have you been in it?
We asked many years ago to be able to explore the ARC ministry, the Adult Rehabilitation Centers in the South. But due to my husband's illness, he has had 2 kidney transplants. We're kind of put on a waiting list, if we could call it that. So after the second transplant, we pray about it and ask again, and the Lord is so gracious. And of course, the leadership in Atlanta entrusted us with the Adult Rehabilitation Ministry. And so we came here. We were appointed here a year and a half ago. So we came in June of 2019 to Charlotte, North Carolina. Beautiful place, beautiful center. We follow some very, very capable officers. So it wasn't difficult to come in and right away start working and learning. And we're newbies into this ministry, but we are having so much fun. It's just so great. It's heartbreaking and rewarding. So we look forward to many more years, but especially to learn more about this ministry and everything that encompasses. So yeah, we're very excited. We're having tons of fun.
Yeah, well, that's a very special ministry. We hope to delve into that a little bit later if we can. But tell us, you've launched now these Spanish speaking, the Spanish articles in the War Cry under the heading Como Tu. What are your goals in reaching Spanish speaking readers with it in the War Cry?
So there is about 40 million people, roughly about 13% of our population, U.S. residents, that speak Spanish at home. If they speak Spanish at home, that means it is close to them, even if they um, if they speak or not English. That's another point. But that means that they're comfortable with that language, and they rather read and worship in that language. And so it was always a dream of mine to be able to reach out to immigrants or even non-immigrants. They're second and third generation uh, Hispanics living in this country. They still speak Spanish at home, and so they consider that their first language, if you will. And so it is a great opportunity to be able to reach them in their language, to discover things about God and to discover things about the Bible. And the goal of this column, I entitled it Like You, Como Tu. It's like that we can find ourselves in the scriptures. We can find people with our same struggles, our same difficulties, our same joys, goals, and dreams. And we can see how we can live within God's will by reading and learning from this character. Sometimes I think we put some Bible characters on a pedestal, and at the end of the day, there were people just like us, learning from God and trying to live their lives by God's standard. And I think just by bringing that idea that we can be like them, como tu, so those characters can be just like us, and that was the goal, to make it a really not very deep theologically, just a very practical column to just get readers excited about reading the scriptures as something that is relevant today. It might have happened 4,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, but it is relevant. Their stories, their lives, their lessons are relevant today to the immigrant community in the United States.
I think it's a telling statistic that you just said, that 40 million people in America, and I think, Jeff, what is it, 330 million people live in the United States. 40 million have the ability to write, speak with the beautiful Spanish language. And one of our challenges has been over the years is that we don't have the infrastructure or the finances to produce the War Cry, every issue of the War Cry in Spanish, in the Spanish language. So this, Jeff, as we had discussed several months ago, this was an opportunity for us to consider how we can bring our Latino family in. We've had a lot of feedback from different officers and different people throughout the country about making sure that we're including our Spanish readers and writers. So I'm really pleased with the direction that we're going with this particular column, Jeff.
Yeah, and boy, we appreciate the life that Major News bringing to it. And so it just I think about immigrants coming to the country and what a challenge it must be to become acculturated in this world. The world itself is so complicated for everyone, but immigrants are so challenged. And at the same time, we're becoming more sensitive to different cultural traditions. How best to relate to this group and be respectful and appreciative of their cultural tradition and outlook, Major New, would you say?
Well, it's very important to ask questions. Never assume. We may speak the same language, which we do. We don't have. It's interesting. It makes me smile a little bit when people say, "So, which dialect do you speak? Cuban dialect?" And I said, no, no, it's one language. We just have different accents. It would be the same as asking, yeah, asking somebody from Australia, so what kind of English do you speak? Well, I speak English with an Australian accent. So it's the same for us, but we do have um, rich backgrounds, different ancestries. They spread out because of the those Spaniards that move into Latin America and mixed in with the natives, Latinos, and so it's just different. We may look different, but we speak the same language, but we have different traditions, and we're different countries. We have different flags, different national anthems. So different heroes that we respect and love their memory. So I think it's important to ask questions. So when we are introduced to a group of Latinos or Hispanics, whichever term you like more, I particularly like the word Latino, but it's important to ask questions to find out. So where you come, where is your ancestry? Were you born here? Sometimes because we see a last name, we assume, oh, they must be immigrants. And no, it could be some people in South Texas have been here longer than some Caucasians that I know, because they're fifth, sixth generation. They were born in that land. So I think it's really important. The first step is always to ask questions, to be willing to learn. I think all cultures appreciate so much when people are interested in their culture and their traditions, and of course be respectful. I'll tell you a little funny story if you allow me. Many years ago, I was at a court. I'm not going to mention the place or the office because I don't want to get in
That's
trouble.
safe. That's safe.
Right? But I
Right.
was in a court many years ago, and I was a single officer right then. I was a single mom, and this officer came in and said, "So Ruth, what are you doing today? Partying or anything like that?" And I'm like, "Partying? What do you mean? I'm gonna say I just go home after this for the office. I go home." And he's like, "No, but it's Cinco de Mayo." And I have been in the country barely for like 2, 3 years. I didn't know what Cinco de Mayo meant. And so I said, "Cinco de Mayo, what is that?" He's like, "Well, it's the Mexican independence." And so I'm like, "Am I Mexican, Major?" And he's like, no, wait, it gets better. He said, "Oh, no, of course not. But is it all the same?"
Oh, goodness.
So yes, it didn't offend me at all. It was just so funny to me. So I'm like, you cannot say that. But I think sometimes we don't even, people don't even mean it. They just assume. So the best thing really with any culture is just to ask questions and be genuinely interested. And people don't really appreciate that, but they just love it. Yeah.
But well, it really is a matter of respect. And when we think about the Salvation Army, we can't think of it in a vacuum because we are an international organization. We're all over the place in many languages and 130 plus countries and on and on. And Jeff, that before my wife and I came here to national headquarters, we were divisional leaders out in Central California. And we had at least, I think it was 7 Latino speaking corps, and every one of them was different. And I think you, Major New, you kind of hit it on the head there, that there you may speak the same language, but there is a heritage and a culture and a background. Nicaragua is different from Honduras, and how people think, and the food and all those sorts of things. So I like the idea of where you're going with this, that you're trying to make sure that people relate to these Bible characters and understanding it in Bible context, but even in their own context, and expanding the appreciation there, I think is really good.
Yeah. And, you've let us know that the folks from those parts of the world are very proud of their countries and their traditions.
Yes.
And rightly so. And, I've heard lately that, with immigration to the United States, it's like we have an opportunity to share the gospel with the world in our own way because of our multicultural tradition. And of course, the Army is so good at that. It's a wonderful feature.
Yeah. I think
Well, we
this is a
could.
great vehicle with, I'm sorry, I
No,
was
no,
just
go
going
ahead.
to say that column, that not the column Como two, but the other column where we highlighted countries. So it's so important. It's very short, very concise. We just talk about a specific country in Latin America and highlight a Salvation Army figure and put a little recipe, because it is important to see ourselves. Yeah, for a culture to understand and to be appreciated. It's so great to see ourselves on stage, to see ourselves represented in books and literature, in music, and so it's the same in the church. And so I look forward to Spanish speaking people picking up the magazine, opening, and saying, "Oh my gosh, they have a Chilean recipe this month. I wonder what's next month. I'm gonna look for mine. It'd be great if they put, or even if they disagree, that's not my favorite from Chile. Um, I think it's just so important to see ourselves. Me as an immigrant, I can say, so important, so wonderful to see myself and my people represented somehow in every medium, all the mediums. So that's what we wanted to go about in that way.
I should point out really quickly that your columns are available online and can be shared online through sharing on social media.
And I can't wait to see when we come around to the World Cup time, what you have to say.
Oh my gosh. Is that this year? I know the Olympics are, but I didn't know the World Cup was this year.
I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I don't know if World Cup is, but we know that football in Latin America and in Hispanic, and yeah, I mean it's
Super
crazy.
important. It
It's
is super
crazy.
important.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It's part of their identity, to be honest. Not so much in the Caribbean, so we don't have a lot of soccer in Cuba. It's more baseball, but in Latin America, it's super important.
Major, one of our goals in kind of it's an unspoken goal, but one of our goals is developing writers. I happen to have been given the opportunity many years ago from one of our most popular editors, Major Henry Garapi, to I was kind of like how you were. I was given an opportunity to write something on a regular basis, and that kind of shaped my own writing abilities and my interest and gave voice. And I learned a particular style, and I write in a certain way. I'm just wondering, how have you over the years developed your own writing and perhaps editorial skills and talents that have brought you to this point?
Well, I was born into a family of readers. I started reading even before going to school. Not really reading, but I would memorize the books. And so it seemed like I was reading at 4 years old, but I actually memorized from my parents reading so much to me. And have a older brother who's an avid reader and writer. He started writing poetry very, very early in his life. And of course, as a younger sibling, I started imitating him and discovered a love for poetry too. So I started writing poetry maybe about 10 years old. Then discovering my own reading development, discovering short stories. And so I started writing little short stories here and there. Won a couple of competitions in school in Cuba with short stories. I started writing plays as I grew in my reading development. I started writing plays because of church and youth groups and doing passion plays and things like that. So that was so very amateur. But it developed in me a love for writing and a love for the written word. And of course, the more I read, the more um, accomplished in an amateur way. I don't know if accomplish is the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. I became
No,
a little bit
it's all
better.
part of the
Yeah,
development. I mean,
yeah.
that's what we tell people. They say, "Well, what's the secret to writing?" It's write.
Writing is writing.
And
Um,
write widely, kind of, because you've just mentioned you've written scripts and you've written
yeah.
columns and paragraphs and sermons and etc.
No, as I got older, I really went away from short stories and plays and concentrating on the poetry because um, poetry is comes easily when you're really, really, devastated. Things are not going that well. For some reason, just
Mm-hmm.
words just spring forth. And there was a time in my life that was really, really difficult. Because I became a single mom and all that. And I wrote some of my best stuff there. None of it published or anything. It's just for personal, enjoyment. And then as I started studying here in the United States, then I discovered, well, I'm sorry, as I came here to the United States, I started reading in English, which is a brand new thing, and discovering another language and the beauty of the written word in another language. And that was a new thing then for me to start writing. And the first things, of course, I started writing were sermons, because that's what I was doing. And I realized, oh my gosh, I was a storyteller in Spanish, but I can also do it in English with God's help, because my vocabulary was limited. But the more I read in English, the more vocabulary I gained. And by the time I was able to go back to school, I was able to write in English. I couldn't believe it. God is so good. It just is miracles. And to the point now that I consider myself as fluent in English that I was in Spanish. I was a little scared, Colonel, when you called me and asked me to write in Spanish. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't written in Spanish in 20 years. I have forgotten. So I had to go refresh grammar and do some refresh. Of course, it's there in the back of my mind. It's there. It's never going to go away. But it was interesting that I have already. I'm so immersed in the English language that I had to like revisit the Spanish. But I'm able now to write in English and write articles for schoolwork. But nevertheless, it's articles, but I haven't been able to get back to writing poetry because I am happy. So evidently, I only write poetry when I'm all happy, and I
Yeah.
cannot for the life of me sit down and come up with something. So
Well, let's make it clear
yeah.
that the genre of poetry is not just when we're in the dark spaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've read some good, happy Dr. Seussy kind of poetry, but for me, I can't write poetry when I'm happy. So hopefully for other people, it's different. But I'm just so looking forward to developing a little bit here as a writer with this opportunity with the work right and see where God takes it.
Well, and we'll kind of trap you right here too, because we don't want to just stereotype and pigeonhole you into writing for this. But we're also in our publications. We're looking for manuscripts for Crest Books, and we're trying to expand our the genre and gender and experience. So we are looking for English written material, especially from anointed women of God. We think that's really, really important.
Yeah, that's an important consideration. But you're right. Writing can be a catharsis. It can be a way to logically work through problems or issues that you're dealing with. And it's a craft. And we applaud you for keeping on schedule so far. And, what it takes. Hard writing makes for easy reading, and we appreciate your efforts. What are your plans for the column in the future? Do you have any ideas percolating?
Yeah, I already have the ideas for the next issue. I believe it will be because I think April is the Easter issue. So I have down May, and then I'm really excited because I have an interview planned with a lady from Maryland, and she's from Ecuador, and I'm really excited because she's younger, newer into the Army from actually the Eastern Territory, and I'm just excited of hearing from her, and it is great that I'm doing this also on for personally. I am learning a lot. I'm learning about their countries and their rich heritage, how they have come to meet the Lord, how they have come to the Salvation Army. And I'm learning about their favorite recipe. So that's not a bad thing either. So for the column Como Tu, which is like you, the Bible characters, I chosen a woman and a man from the Old Testament and the New Testament that are not well known, except for the first one, Abraham. I was kind of like, it's something that specific one about Abraham was something that the Lord had given me a message a long time ago, and I just wanted to put it in writing. But then I quickly went into not too well-known characters of the Old and New Testament. And so I'm choosing a man and a woman, so forth. I probably won't be able to cover a lot. It's like 10, I think, 10 issues, because we don't count the Easter and the Christmas. And again, it's only going to be 10 nations from Latin America, so a lot of nations are not going to be able to be covered. But I think 10 is a lot, and I'm happy to see where this is going. And I'm happy. I would love to hear some responses from people to see if the Lord is speaking to them, if they're excited to see themselves and printed in the magazine through their country's name or flag or a simple recipe. So looking forward to hearing some feedback.
Well, we would appreciate any of our listeners if you could turn to that section of the War Cry. Give us your thoughts, especially if you read Spanish. That would be helpful. But we're really grateful for what we're seeing, and we're grateful that you're part of our production team. And as Jeff said, it's great that you're hitting our deadlines. And as you can imagine, we know that you're busy. You and your husband have a tremendous work that you're doing with the men and women of the ARC. We're grateful for you taking the extra time to do this, and giving your voice and giving what's on your heart. And I guess one of my last questions for you, Major, would be, what are some of the burdens that are on your own heart from what you're seeing in the world today, and as you move in and out with the people that you're ministering to?
Well, many of the people that we minister to in the ARC, at least in Charlotte, that's our experience in Charlotte, are African Americans. And so through the events that have transpired in this last year, 2020, not only with COVID and everything else, we have been able to reach out to this community who many of them are hurt, or they feel alienated, or even discriminated against. And as an immigrant, I have some point of contact with them, and but both of us, Rick and I, have been able to just embrace just because, and just show them that God's love. Sorry, I got a little emotional, but we had just been able to show them what God love looks like, and it's not about words. It's about love. It's about just hugging them. It's about letting them know that they may have been let down in the past, but we are going to do everything we can to show God's love through our actions. And I tell you, serving in the ARC is such a humbling ministry, and I'm so blessed that we've been given this opportunity to reach out to people and give them second and third and fourth chances. I don't care how many, because that's there are infinite amount of chances that the Lord gives us. So it's been tough, especially this past year, but it's been so rewarding to be able to see them also reach out and to be able to pray with them at the height of the protests and all that was happening, and come together as a community in the center, and just pray and have one mind, actually, and speak freely, and speak words of forgiveness and acceptance. It has been very, it has brought a lot of healing. And so I'm thankful to God for even the hard times, because it's allowed us to really be instruments of love. And I'm forever thankful for that.
Well, we are indebted to you. We thank you for taking a few moments today out of your very busy schedule to join us here on our podcast, and certainly for what you're doing kind of on the side in the quiet where nobody sees, how you're preparing your heart, and how the words are flowing from your pen, and that you're getting them to us. We're very excited. So thank you for what you are doing, and thank you to your husband too for letting you kind of come out and play with in the publishing field a little bit. Jeff, is there any
Thank
other
you.
questions or any other thing that you'd like to ask?
No, I just really appreciate, the opportunity to speak with you and to get a sense of your vision and heart. And also, we do want to reach these new audiences, the Spanish-speaking audiences, with the message of the gospel. So thank you for all you do in that regard.
And thank you all for allowing this opportunity. This was fun. Yeah, I think I've done radio once, and it was during Christmas season. So this is a little bit more fun to be able to talk about this. But thank you, Colonel and Jeff and Elizabeth as well. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Well, that was Major Ruth New, and we appreciate all that she's doing. We encourage you to check out the new column in the War Cry, Como Tu, and we will be looking forward to some great stories and great recipes also as we come along throughout this next year. Well, that's going to end this episode of the Fight for Good podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on the War Cry and Peer Magazine on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Remember that the War Cry is available to you free of charge. It's all online, www.thewarcry.org, or you could pick up a copy at a Salvation Army center near you, or you could subscribe for $1 a month. Still a great deal. And we would be happy to have this magazine given to you. Also, we encourage you to read Peer Magazine for Generation Z and the Alpha Generation, the youngsters out there. That's at peermag.org. You can subscribe to that magazine there as well. Don't forget to listen to our sister podcast, The Battle Lines, with Captains Matt and Jamie Satterley. They're diving into youth culture and lots of different things. It's a lot of fun. Jeff, I'll say the Battle Line culture, the Battle Line podcast, they talk a lot over there. They do. For those young kids.
We'll have to ramp it up.
Those little kids. Elizabeth, you send me their thing to edit and to listen to, and I'm like, man, this is really long.
Good chatter.
A lot of good chatter, a lot of good stuff, and we appreciate the Satterleys very much. Well, until next time, this has been the Fight for Good podcast. Bye for now.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.